G'day, Jack out the back here. Last night as I was coming home, I noticed that one of the water points wasn't pumping as well as it should be. So today I'm going to cruise out there, replace it and make sure that I've got some extra power there for tonight. I'll show you what I mean. So here we are at Wharton's where it's not pumping. So I'll flick her off and pull her up and we'll see what we've got, if it's a impeller that's gone or if it's the pump itself that's gone. Now this pump's been down since 2019 and hasn't had an issue. See some people saying that the Chinese pumps aren't as good quality and don't last, but I reckon they do a pretty damn good job for their price. They fit the purpose and they've kept us going. So I can't really complain about them. So we've got our pump out. I'm just going to flick on the power and see what we've got, see if we can hear if it's the impeller or the pump itself. So what I'm listening for is whether you can hear a massive amount of vibration or if it's a small tick. So we've only got a small tick happening there. We'll confirm it, but I reckon that our motor's buggered. So we'll just take open this mesh screen and have a look and see if we've got any motion at the top of the motor itself. Right, so our very basic diagnostic is going to start with undoing this mesh and seeing what we can see in there. So I'll flick him on and see if we've got any motion here. If we've got motion there, we've got hope. There's no motion there, so we're just going to go straight for swapping the pump out. Fortunately, coming prepared today, I've got a spare pump. Now the reasons why we went to solar instead of staying with windmills was that it gave us control over the overflow, which meant that we aren't just giving free water to animals that aren't using the self-mustering yards, like your horses, donkeys and camels. So what it does is it forces the animals, particularly the equine, they use the self-mustering yards quite quickly. But it meant that we could control them, manage them very efficiently. So we got rid of a lot of horses in a short amount of time without having to chase them with a helicopter or run expensive culling programs. Now this is where it gets more complicated, because I don't want to have to dig that line up, but to make my life easier in the future, we're going to use some quick joiners. So give ourselves a bit of extra length here, something we can bundle away. Those bones that are still out there, they're from back in 2019 when I had a lot of camels to shoot. So I'll do a little pop-up video. That'll be a little bit of a clip from back then, just to show you sort of what this landscape looked like during a drought. There's a new controller. And that's all the fit out for it. Right, time to get wrapping on some cable after tidying up this last bit of rubbish. We always used to joke that when you go to pull out a windmill, it's windy, but by the time you fixed it, it's dead still. And in some ways you get that again with the solar, where when you pull it, it's sunny and hot, but then when you go to test it, it's cloudy. Another reason why we prefer the solar is that you don't have to be climbing up a windmill. You can do it alone. It's quick. We roughly worked out that by the time you've paid for the labour of pulling a windmill, you've already put solar down there. And I reckon that the day that I wake up and we don't have the sun, we're going to have a few more problems than worrying about water out and about. With that said, you do get your slower days, particularly hot, overcast days. But the majority of our tanks don't drop below 75%. So it's good to see our dipsticks, as soon as you start to see those dropping to about a third of them showing, it's worth stopping and having a good look at it. And that's where the cameras, when we do a proper one showing what you can see from those, you actually get a pretty good visual. Now the pink and greys are a pest. You know, they're only here in such great numbers because of the water. And you can see that we've put some poly pipe on there, and you saw the video yesterday where I had to fix up a water monitoring unit because of the birds chewing it. And it seems like they chew it for no other reason than to be malicious. You can also see the damage that they do to a lot of these trees, where they sit up, perch and chew out little areas for themselves to be able to have a clear view. So she's taped up and ready to drop down. So let's do it. I'll whack these bolts in and then we'll just get on to the next stage. Took the opportunity while the GoPro was in the angle cooling down to just do a little bit of a tidy up and to rig up the 240 volt adapter. But what I'll get to down here is just the future time saving job of installing these screw down connectors so that this buried line doesn't have to get dug up each time. Got a little bit of extra slack on our pump line and we've made the cut. Now we've got plenty of line exposed. Let's grab our strippers. Now I'm cutting these ones back because when I stripped the wire, this old wire is a harder compound and I cut too deep and I didn't want to leave any chance of it shorting across to each other. Alright, so pretty simple and straightforward. Twist our lines together, make sure we've got enough room in that joiner. And then you just grab your Phillips head and screw them down. Means that next time we want to pull this one, just undo it there and you're away. I've thought about other types of proprietary plugs or any sort of system like a Deutz, but these are rated for mains power, so for 240 they hold together pretty well. They don't seem to oxidize. They're built to last, so if they work, why would I change it to anything else? Which is, interestingly, the same sort of argument you could make for windmills. But as I outlined earlier, we have our water savings where we're not having it run off down into the creek like that pipe there used to. The other thing I look at is that the water underground, that's a tank as well. And I don't want to draw that down too far and just dump it on the surface for it to evaporate. So if I can keep the water underground and in the profile and only take what we need, we leave a little bit more there for the rest of the environment, and it keeps it up our sleeves for when you do get a dry year or a drought where your demand's out stripping the recharge rate. At least that's my current working theory. Only take what you need. Now I'd moved my electrical tape because I cut my finger yesterday and I opened it up again today. So I just ran with a little bit of electrical tape. Didn't even put a rag in it, just straight out electrical tape. Now for most of this you've watched in real time. So you're getting a bit of an idea of how much time we do save just by switching to the solar, and then the simplicity of the system to diagnose, replace and repair. Then the cost of it is just, yeah, it's incredibly affordable for your business. So while she's firing up, what we've got here is additional leads that run out, and that converts 240 volt AC into the 48 volt DC. So what I'll do tonight is I'll fly in, land on a nice big strip over there, fire up the genset and let her have a bit of a jump start. It'll get her ahead for tomorrow, and then we won't need to touch her for a while. And just to make sure the rubbish doesn't blow away, grab the alligator, put him over the end. Got a little bit to tidy up here, you know, stop attracting these fellas in to have a chew, or a cow or a camel. And even over the squawking of those lovely birds, you can hear the pumps going away nice and strong. Might need something with a little bit more beauty about it than that, but I think I've spied something that could do the job for us. Looks like it was made for it. Now this bit of old conveyor matting, draper matting off a header front, we use it on our yards for blinding because it's nice and light and it lasts a long time. It's tough, but it also makes it a little nice work platform, so you don't have to be in the dirt, you don't have to have your trailer or space on your tray. And then finally, right, so that's ready to set up this evening. Got extra fuel, it'll run for a whole night. And that's nice to have had that done by 8:30. Took an hour to drive out here. Later on we'll pull that windmill down and we'll set it up for remote comms. Should be nice. So on the way home I decided I'd pop by Well Springs and check out the fence. So we'll just have a quick look at it here. This is protecting a freshwater spring that's down here. This is on the edge of a salt lake, which it's pretty incredible. But what is pretty awesome is over there. So this area itself is called Weld Springs. after the explorer Larry Weld, who found the spring itself and did a lot of the mapping around here after the Carnegie expedition. But quite often it just gets called well springs without the D. But it's easy to see why you get that sort of confusion, because what we have here is a well that's been dug out in the middle of this wash that leads straight into a salt lake. Now, it's just absolutely fascinating to me to be next to a salt lake and have such fresh water. And then also just thinking about how hard it would have been to dig this, because the rock that it goes through is calcrete, but then you get a harder version of it, which is like you're trying to chip through marble, which just is absolutely brutal. Now, I'm not as enthusiastic as the other day to dive down and have a taste of this, but I'll just trust that it's good enough, considering people dug it down in such harsh conditions. We today use a bore that's drilled just up here, and we've got solar on that. And I understand that there was another bore previously in the area, sort of within the 500 meter radius of here, but prior to that, what they used to use is a siphon pump on a windmill. So you had the pipe down, sucking from there and pulling it up to the old squatter tank. It's just pretty awe-inspiring, some of the history and the work that went into this land. Just hooking the electric back up, which seems to do a pretty good job of keeping him off. So this area, this water point and this lake, has seen some pretty horrific scenes in the past, in particular during the drought, when we had just thousands of camels coming in out of the desert and they really needed a drink. But we had the job and the responsibility to ethically control them and euthanize as many as we can. So I might cut to some of that, and just, again, this episode's a little bit graphic, but that's the reality of life out here. I'm just going to pop back out to Wharton's and start up the gen set. So I'm just going to fly out there, but only after my airstrip becomes a little bit clearer. A little steer just cruising on by. He's a little bit disappointed because I've shut the lawn so they can't get onto the fresh irrigated Kikuyu. Just giving it a chance to sort of come back a bit. Right, let's get ready to fly. So the little bird makes that about 15-minute flight, and it means that you can do a lot more, which is just a hell of a lot better than bouncing around in the old Land Cruiser. Looks like our dipstick's already gone up a bit, so she's been pumping pretty well today. I'll flick this gen set on. Forgot to wear my gloves. So now, just gotta flick a little bit of stuff off my hands. So that's it, genset's going, pump's gonna go all night, probably a few extra hours in the morning, then the solar will be back online, and yeah, I'm not gonna be stressed about this water for quite a while. As I said, it had a, I think a 4-year service before she had an issue. So 4 years out of a pump like that, I'm not disappointed. So that's it for the day. Time to go find a beer. Oh, would you look at that? It's even an Apprenti down stubby holder. Can't really say no to that. Cheers.